All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're here with a man who, if you're a Spacebusters fan, needs no introduction because he's somehow made his way into at least 12 or 14 films since early 2020. But it's none.
12 or 14.
I think maybe more. And you've
Wow.
somehow managed to make your way into the new one I'm working on with Dr. Mark Bailey. So that's one more. But it's Dr. Tom Cowan. Tom, thanks for coming on. It's great. I've really been looking forward to speaking with you.
Great. Thanks. It's good to talk to you again, Steve. Appreciate everything you're doing. You make some great stuff. So
Thank you very much. So do you. Well, yeah, I found you a long time ago, and I dare say you're one of my teachers. And I've looked up to everything you've done, especially on what we're going to speak about today. Is even in the early days of my filmmaking, I was still under the impression that biology as we know it, cellular biology, is real, and DNA. And I made some mistakes in my early films that you've been teaching me, like, no, hang on. This is all theoretical. And what we're going to talk about today, which is exciting, is your new biology curriculum, which is great because the timing couldn't be better, in my opinion. All of us for years now have been exposing what isn't and what's false and what's not real, and certain political agendas. And I think people are now at the stage going, yeah, we get it. So what do we do about it, right? And I think that's why I'm really excited about what you're doing. This new biology curriculum, I dare say, is pretty radical. It's a pretty radical thing. But the first question is, I think people would have is like, Tom, why do we need another health curriculum, right? We know allopathic medicine is dodgy, but we have homeopathy, naturopathic, shamanic medicine, acupuncture, witch doctors. Why are you doing this?
yeah, I mean, that's a great question. And sometimes, it's funny when you didn't say it exactly like this, but people say, oh yeah, I believe everything you say, I'm with you 100%. And I always think to myself, I don't even believe 100% of what I say. It's like I have sometimes conversations with my wife and she says, did you just make that up? I say, of course I just made it up, but so let me just say in for the next 45 minutes, I will try to differentiate when I'm saying fact versus my own speculation, right? Because I think that's important. Some things are facts and some things are not. And I don't mind people speculating, but I would rather they say when they're speculating, because, that we all do that. So
I agree. You're very logical too. What I like about you is you have intuition and just logic. You just you don't take BS. You say, hang on, that doesn't make sense. And I get the feeling that's where this is coming from. All of your experience in medicine, you must have along the way said, hang on, something's
yeah,
wrong here.
well, I started even before I went to medical school. I was sort of groomed to be a doctor, but I didn't like it. I didn't like how they thought. And so until I realized there was another way to do medicine, I wasn't going to go. When I did realize. So I think the way to answer that is maybe by looking at a few situations and contrasting like allopathic medicine and then sort of natural, holistic, or sometimes functional medicine, and then what we're calling new biology curriculum or medicine. So what would you learn? So let's take a simple thing like depression, right? So depression is supposedly a disease, right? And I say that because it's in the DSM-8 or whatever number they're on manual of, that's the list of psychiatric diseases. So therefore it must be a disease, right? Because it says depression. And so the question, and so what we're looking at is, and here's a speculation or a hypothesis, and you can actually say whether you even agree with this or not, because I do, but I would say I can't prove it. I would say that you can't build a healthy anything, and I'm talking about a person, a life, a community, a world, based on untruths. Now, again, I can't prove that, because you could say, well, you could have a relationship that is based on that people hate each other, but they don't say that to each other, and maybe that'll work, right? There's a lot of people have tried. I could tell you that, uh, but I don't think that's the best way to have a healthy relationship, right? So that's a speculation which I can't prove. But so the question then is, how does this doctor, he or she, come up with this diagnosis of depression? So here's how it works. So I've actually seen studies that show that when you go to a normal doctor, you have approximately 37 seconds before they interrupt you. And I can tell you that I was an ER doctor for a while, and I don't think most people made it to 37 seconds. They came in and said, my arm, I fell, and boom, I was done, because then I was going to do an x-ray and find out what's wrong with if they have a broken arm. I didn't need to hear any BS about their dog tripped them or anything. I didn't care. It's your arm. So a person comes in, doctor says, what's up? He says, oh, I'm really depressed. And in a way, that's all they need to hear, right? Person's depressed, that's the diagnosis. Then you do what you need to do, because in medicine, it's all about getting the diagnosis and matching the treatment. Maybe they let him go on. Yeah, my job isn't going well. I'm not getting along with the missus, and I'm a little financially stressed, and yeah, I'm just really depressed. Now, here's the assumptions behind that encounter. Number one, depression is a disease. It's not an experience of life. Like, this guy has a crappy life, right? And so he doesn't feel good about the way things are going. And so that's number one. And the second is, the cause of his depression disease is a serotonin deficiency. And so because of that, he hears the diagnosis from the patient, right? He doesn't know anything about this person. He says, you have a diagnosis of depression. It's caused by serotonin deficiency. Take Prozac or, one of the other ones, SSRIs, to make you have more serotonin. Come back in a month. Tell me how you're doing. Right? So those are the assumptions and the course of action based on that thinking. Now, interestingly, here's typically what would happen. Guy comes back in a month. How you feeling? Oh, feel much better. Yeah, how's your life doing? Well, the wife left me. I got fired from my job. I went bankrupt, and I gained 30 pounds because I'm sitting on the couch all day. So,
but I don't give a shit about it.
I don't give a shit.
I'm healed. Thank you.
Yeah. So you might say, so what makes you think I just don't feel so bad anymore? Right. So he's fixed, right? Now, the problem with that encounter is, A, there is no diagnosis of depression. That's an experience, and people have been trained to say that. And B, and here is a fact. This is not speculation. There is no evidence that a chemical in your brain called serotonin has anything to do with the symptom of feeling bad. That has been disproven. Even, our friend Kelly Brogan has published studies on that. There is no evidence that that's true. And the evidence that they will give you, well, I gave the person a chemical like Prozac and they got better, is supposedly proof that it's caused by serotonin. In other words, if somebody is something and you give them cocaine and they feel better, that means they had a cocaine deficiency and you fixed it, right? That's the proof. So that's obviously nonsense, right? So
Yes.
my conclusion of working, I never really did that, but I was part of that system for, decades, is the problem is the assumptions. They assume there's a disease, which there isn't. They assume a cause of an imaginary disease, which has not only never been proven, it's been disproven. And even that's not even getting into whether nerves have synapses, which they don't, and whether there's neurotransmitters, which there
They
aren't.
don't. Yeah, exactly.
So that's even a part, those are even assumptions underlying the whole serotonin thing. Okay, so that's obvious. That one's, let's just call it BS. So then, okay, so you're a little bit more enlightened person. I'm going to go to my holistic functional doctor. So you go in, say, I'm really depressed and tired, and he listens to you, and you do a questionnaire about 20 pages of all the symptoms and got low libido and et cetera. And so then he says, okay, we need to do some tests. So he does approximately, he or she, I keep saying he, but could be anybody, about $4,000 or $5,000 worth of tests on urinary amino acids and neurotransmitters and a whole lot of other things. How much lithium is being excreted in your hair, except it wouldn't be much in you.
Not much.
So now, what are the assumptions? Well, first of all, there's a disease called depression, right? They still believe that. Second of all, that all these chemicals will somehow tell you what's wrong with the person. I mean, if you just examine like urinary amino acids, so they're too high, you could say, well, they're too high, which is good because you're excreting the extra. You could say that's bad because that means your body has too many of those amino acids. You can actually say just about anything you want, because nobody has ever demonstrated that the amount of amino acids in your urine has anything to do with an experience of being sad.
Which is
Right?
probably your mother died and you're 3 months behind on your rent. Like, that's crazy. Yeah, the same with the Prozac. It's as if it's not okay to be sad.
Right.
Which is, your body is telling you something's wrong. You need to deal with an emotional trauma. Same with disease, which we'll get into. I never call it disease. I call it dis-ease, because your body has to have a way to show you that you're deficient or something's wrong,
Right.
so that you know to fix it, right? Like if you broke your leg and it didn't hurt when you walked on it, you would just hurt it more because
Right.
you wouldn't feel
Well,
it.
you're jumping the gun and getting into new biology, which is the point is, there is still in almost all of what's called alternative or holistic medicine, the assumptions are almost identical. There is a disease, you are a chemistry set, you have neurotransmitters, we can figure out where they're off and fix them. And so they give you, $500 worth of supplements to take every month. And, the results are, let's just say, variable. Now, in what I'm saying is we want to base medicine on reality, not unproven or disproven assumptions. So the reality is there's something going wrong with your life, just like you said, Steve. Like, so you spend a certain amount of time saying, so what happened to you? And I actually learned in my practice that people will go back, if you let them, to what happened. Some it's just, I was fine, and then 2 weeks ago my dog died and now I feel sad, and that's perfectly normal. They don't have a disease. They don't need anything except someone to say, yeah, I hear you. I that's like sad. Or it could be that you were abused as a child and you were starved, and there's a whole lot of stuff to unpack, and whatever it is, you stick with the real story of the patient, which is an individual explanation of what happened in their life. Now, some of it's like psychological / emotional, and some of it's, yeah, I was fine, and then I decided to only eat raw beets. How come? Well, because that makes you feel better. So what happened? Oh man, I felt like shit after that. So the problem is you made a choice to do something which I would say is wonky, and it didn't work. And so you have a physical deficiency, like, right? So that's a physical problem. So it's not like saying, is it a mental problem or emotional or a physical? It's whatever it is, and probably a mixture of all of those. Now, once you find the story, then you try to address, or you might even say with the person, fix. Like if it's beets, you'd start eating regular food. If it's abuse or your dog, you might get a new dog, or maybe that would, you know what I mean? There's a way to address, and some people may be zinc deficient, right? That could be the story. And that's so none of that. And by the way, if you say somebody's zinc deficient, you better know how you figure that out, because that's a tricky one, because it's very complicated to even know whether minerals stay the same in your body as what you put in, and it's complicated. And so with every situation, you just go through that process. You can do it with flu. The regular people think it's a virus, so they give you an antiviral or a vaccine. There's alternative people think it's a virus, so they give you vitamin C. We know there's no evidence for any of that stuff.
Yeah.
What happened to you? And then you deal with that. That's what I mean by new biology.
Yeah, which is great. And I think one of the things I notice is it's the circle. Oh no, it's German new medicine. It's all emotional. It can't possibly be poisoning from the chemicals in your shampoo and your dishwashing soap and all that. Or no, it's all poisoning. It's an energy imbalance. It's acupuncture. No, it's cell salt deficiency.
Yeah.
And I think kind of maybe what you're doing, am I wrong? Or you're marrying everything, saying it's not one or the other, it's combinations or some or maybe none. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's actually a great way to put it, because, through my life, and I've been doing this for almost 40 years, and I wouldn't, this is an exaggeration. By the way, I learned to pay really close attention to when people, quote, lie or exaggerate, because there's always something really juicy in that. The person who comes in and says, oh, my foot is killing me. Well, your foot isn't killing you, right? Because if it was, I would say to cut your foot off. But it probably hurts really bad sometimes, right? And then you have to dissect when it hurts and what happens. It's because my wife stomps on my foot in the morning. That's when it hurts. And so then you know the problem. So anyways, so I'm going to exaggerate here. I have learned at least some about pretty much every medical system there is. I can get by as a homeopath and an herbalist and anthroposophical doctor and German new medicine and, herbs and food and all the rest. And none of them fit right with me. It just like you say, it's only emotional. So I would ask people, breast cancer, it's only trauma-based with sex or something. So I'd have people with breast cancer and I'd go through their whole life, not a single trauma that anybody could remember or anything. And I just said, screw it, it's not right. Because meanwhile, they were essentially, like eating arsenic or something all the time. And it wasn't emotion. I mean, everything's emotional, right? But
there's a lot of chemical. Yeah. There's something to Bruce Lipton's work. I don't like the word epigenetics because genetics are BS too, but there's, as Bruce Lipton always said, when you're in love, you meet someone for the first time. He said, are you sick? You're
Yeah,
not even, you're still eating arsenic and dish soap and all that, but you're walking around. So there's, I think they all interact. And if you get in a deficient mental and physical state, you start to get a dis-ease, what your body is just telling you, right? It's time.
yeah,
I think your background is great because there will be a lot of people saying, who the hell is Tom Cowan think he is? He can come out with a new
yeah, right.
medical
I think
curriculum.
that too.
Yeah. But let's take you back to, I think you went to Michigan State, right? For
Yes.
holistic medicine, but it wasn't really holistic. Can take us back and tell us, how did this happen in your head? Because we all talk to, I'm not going to name names, but there are certain allopathic doctors out there who are still talking nonsense, indoctrinated nonsense. You can show them mountains of evidence about the boogeyman, invisible, this and that, and they can't get it. How did you not fall into the trap? What happened?
I mean, I don't know exactly, but my going theory on this is I grew up in a what I would call a Jewish ghetto. But Jewish ghettos are a little bit more high, like it was not I mean, I lived in a brick shack basically when I grew up, but my parents had a lot of friends and we were in kind of a group, and I'd say 10 of these friends who I grew up with and played baseball with and played softball and basketball and went ice skating and everything, they were high-powered doctors. Like, as an example, one of them invented the technique of doing laser surgery in gynecology, right? So that's a big, and he was well-known gynecologist all over southern Michigan and probably further. Another was head of gynecology at, head of oncology at, a big Detroit Metropolitan Hospital. Another one was a sort of well-known urologist, and on and on and on. And so I grew up with these people. And one of the things I realized is, like, golf was everything to them. And I was the best golfer in the group. In fact, they lived to win the club championship of this Jewish country club. And they wouldn't let me play until I was 15. Right? Because that's like, and I was 15 and I came in and I won easily, like no problem. And I realized, I wouldn't say I was conscious then, but I thought the reason I won, not only was I certain skilled, but I could outthink them on the golf course. So I realized right then, I don't know if I could have said it, that these brilliant doctors, they were frauds, because the thing they wanted most, not the gynecology, was to win the golf
The Jewish golf championship.
yeah. And so I went into this, not having like awe of like normal doctors and way they think and all that, and it's partly probably my nature, whatever that is. And so I just didn't buy it. And you can't say shit that's not logical and expect me to just believe it. Now the trick is, when you learn medicine, you don't even realize that it's illogical. You just hear it and it seems right, but you don't know. They never go into like how this was found, right? And so you never actually get a chance to hear the logic. And so eventually, as I went through, how do you know the heart pumps the blood? They never talked about that. They just assume it's like God said the heart pumps the blood, so we all know it, and don't ask why, because we don't know who said that or who discovered it or what their evidence was. Nothing. You ask your doctor, how do they know there's viruses? They don't have a clue.
Yeah.
Not a clue. Who came up with the method? Who decided the heart is a pump? Who first identified DNA, and how did they do it? If you go and read Watson and Crick's, Nature paper, it's all about the spiraling of the double helix. And it says right in there, we assumed a angle of, what do you mean you assumed? That's the whole point, is to measure the angles so you can see what it is. And I mean, I never read, nobody ever said, you guys should read this stuff and figure out where this all came from. So, I mean,
I hear new age people saying, we're going into a phase where we're going into 12-dimensional strand DNA. I'm like, there's no proof there's even 2 of them. How are you going to get 12 if you don't even know you actually have 2?
I mean,
it's pretty dodgy,
I heard the other day someone who was giving a talk. I don't listen to many talks, but they talked about water, which I like to talk about, being able to what they called quantum bilocate. Right now, so here's the thing: quantum bilocate, anything with quantum supposedly is true, right? And bilocate means the thing is in 2 places at the same time. I don't know about you, Steve, but as far as I've seen, there's nothing I know of that's in 2 places. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And so I asked her, how did they figure that out? And the answer, of course, no idea. So I went and looked at the study. I mean, it's bullshit.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about maybe magnetic field potential, like the ether, if they're playing tug of war and you're in France and I'm in Denmark, we pull the rope and we move at the same time. But quantum physics is theoretical. Everything's a theory.
It's models.
I keep saying, if it's true, why is it theory? It should be fact. But one of the things that interested me, like you were talking about, so I used to work for the healthcare companies back in the 90s, some very big ones. I'm not going to name them on camera because I'm going to slag them off. I don't want to get sued, but we brought in, the Europeans won't understand this, but you would know, the PPO model came in. We had the HMOs and the PPOs. Basically what we did is, because we were trying to make massive profits, so we say, well, Tom, you're charging too much for this visit or this or that. We're going to regulate what money you get for the visit, but because you're on our list, we're going to send you 20 more patients than normal, so you'll get more patients. And I'm sure there's bean counter actuaries somewhere who worked it out, like, how do we get the deal sweet enough where he'll take it, or she? But the problem was, as Andy Kaufman was saying, now some of these doctors see a patient for 6 minutes. And what I like about your story, if you could talk about it, is your approach is you need to talk to them for a lot more than that to get, as you say, to cut through the BS and find out what is really making you ill, right? How did you come up with that approach? And can you talk about that approach?
Yeah. I mean, there's some interesting things about that, because I actually don't agree that one of the problems with medicine is that doctors don't have time to see their patients. I was in a group of about 70 doctors a few years ago when I was still in California. And interestingly, the guy asked the group, 70 doctors, mostly middle-aged, how many of you have children? Basically, everybody raised their hand. How many of you would want your child to go into medicine? 3 raised their hand out of 70. So that tells you a lot right there. And then he went on about how medicine, he said the reason you guys hate medicine so much, which most of them did, was because they don't give you time to be with your patients and really get to know them and find out what the problem is, et cetera, and all that. Sort of like what you were suggesting. I didn't say anything at the time because I didn't want to get into it, but I actually don't agree with that. Now, here's why. Imagine you go to the doctor and you have a sore throat, right? The game the doctor plays is find the diagnosis, match the medicine with the diagnosis or the procedure. That's it. That is the game they're playing. So person comes in, sore throat, doctor thinks it's either strep, which I can find with a culture, mono, which you have to do a blood test, or it's a virus, don't worry about it. That's it. And so he does his throat culture, does a mono spot, and essentially does what the results tell him to do. If you said to that doctor, okay, you have 2 days to talk to this person and find out about their life and everything, after 5 minutes, he's got nothing to say to the person. No information. He doesn't care whether you have braces or you eat only donuts, or he doesn't know anything about that. He doesn't care if your wife is beating you. None of that. It's either strep, mono, or get out of here, right? That's all there is in life to him. So you could give him 6 weeks to be with that person, and he doesn't know, anything more than in the first 3 minutes. So I don't think that solution would help, right? Because he doesn't, if you say I have inflammation in my joints, it's either rheumatoid arthritis, osteoarthritis, lupus, or you're making it up. And so he does the blood test, gives you the drug based on what he finds. He doesn't care if you're eating crap and never exercise, right? Every once in a while, somebody will go rogue and say, you should try to walk every once in a while.
Yeah, you're kind of fat.
Yeah. But we were drilled into, it's never the patient's fault. It doesn't matter what don't say it's because they do this or think that. It's genes, viruses, or bacteria, or bad luck. That's it. That's why people get sick. So just figure out which of those. So that model came about because of the way they do medicine. And for whatever reason, I just, in medical school, they used to use me as a model for how to question people. Not that but because a person would come in and I would say, walk me through the day. Okay, I wake up at 7, and then what do you eat then? I eat good food. I don't want to know that you eat good food. You tell me what you eat, and I'll decide whether it's good food.
Yeah. I just eat normal donuts, not powdered sugar on them.
Right. So I would go through how they live. What do you do? What do you think about? How are you getting along with your family? What kind of house do you got? Wallpaper on your house? With somebody's, what do you do with your lawn? Everything. So I wanted to know where, and out of that came this whole strategy of, and it does take a while, but it doesn't take as long as you think once you get good at it. And then I learned from Carl Rogers. He was a sort of humanistic psychiatrist, that if you question people but never ask them why, like, why do you have a sore throat? They don't know. And it gets them out of that intuitive side of their understanding. I got a sore throat yesterday. It hurts really bad. I go through when it happens, how it happens, what it feels like, all the details, but it's my job to know why. And then I would tell the story back to them. So you said that you were fine, and then you got a flu shot, and next thing you know, you're paralyzed. Is that right? Yep, that's right. I think I know what happened to you. You got the flu shot, paralyzed. This is not Guillain-Barré syndrome. This is poisoning, paralysis of your nerves, of your motor nerves from a poison. And that's why there's no compliance problem, because the person inevitably says, so you have to tell me how to get that poison out of my body. Got it. which is a perfectly reasonable question, right? That's what I would ask. Yeah, I see. That's what happened to me. I shouldn't have only ate beets. Tell me what to eat. Fine. Here, do this. You'll be good. And
Right.
it was
So they
very
won't come to
simple and
that
straight.
conclusion, right? Until you walk them through it. It does never occurs to them. It might have been that shot
Yeah,
or the beats, right? But they do know, don't they,
they know.
subconsciously? You just have to unlock it, sort of.
And you know how I knew, Steve, that they know? And again, I stole this from Carl Rogers. He said, if you're questioning somebody and you get to this point and then you say it back to them. So here's what they say, one of two things, which is, I knew it. Two, people told me it wasn't true, right? And then the sort of coup de grace comes. They either start laughing or crying, 100% almost. That because people say that it's like they say it's a release. Like, I knew this was the problem. I mean, it's either funny or it's tragic. Sometimes it's sad because they went 20 years knowing that it was that flu shot that got them in the bad state. And every neurologist told them it wasn't. I've had story after story like that. And so, and I can't emphasize, none of what I'm saying is theoretical, right? I'm not getting any theories of neurotransmitters and how nerves work. This is what happened to you in your life. We know that certain poisons cause neurological symptoms. That's what happened to you.
Exactly. I mean, I can tell too, you're the kind of person who doesn't mind rocking the boat, and I think you actually get off on it
Yeah.
a little bit. But you probably even piss off a lot of people in the homeopathic, naturopathic, because again, it's still a medicine-based thing about the symptoms sometimes. What you're saying is, let's get to the cause. Like, who cares about the disease or the treatment right now? What is this? And that's the problem we don't get with most medical systems. Even the or the homeopathic, it's still a medicine-based doctoring. Would you agree with that? Or what's
Yeah, I
different
mean,
about your program than, like, someone says, well, I got a naturopath or a homeopath? What would be different with the new biology
yeah, I
curriculum?
mean, most naturopaths and, in Chinese medicine, homeopathy, I don't want to overgeneralize here, but they basically believe in the disease model. They believe in the categorization of diseases. And then they'll have a slightly different view of the cause of that depression, like it's your liver flow or chi in your liver, and I think you can't build a healthy medical system based on flawed thinking. And there is no disease, hep C or depression or even cancer. It's not like we think it is. Now, homeopathy is a little different because you could say the story is the plant. So if you take the belladonna, it makes your eyes wide open, etc., and sore throat. If somebody comes in with that story, that is their medicine, and that is the diagnosis. That's now, why they got that is they don't get into that. And so we would. But I mean, homeopathy is a profound way of seeing, the interaction of the world outside and a human being or an animal. So, I mean, and so is Chinese medicine. They're talking about energy flows. But I do think it needs to be taken this further step, which is, what happened to the person? Because I can tell you 35 years of doing this, every week practically, the thing that helped people the most was telling their story and hearing it spoken back to them in a way that makes them understand, now I know what happened to me. It was the most profound thing I ever did, more than medicines, exercise, diet, anything. Because then they did things differently. Whatever it was that needs to be changed, insofar as they could, they would change it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the problems we have is we're disempowered when we go to allopathic doctors. They
Yeah,
don't tell you what's wrong and how you should help yourself or that you're the cause. Like you said, if you don't tell that person, you're the reason you're like that. It's the donuts you eat every morning. And,
right.
stop taking a shower with a neon orange shower gel. Look at the back, dum dum. You don't think that's going in your skin. Uh, so I think what you're saying, yeah, one of the things is what's the old saying, physician heal thyself.
Yeah.
I like that approach that you're participating in your own healing, and actually that will bring us to
But
so I well,
doctors are actively discouraged from doing that.
why?
Why? Well, that the teachers of medicine don't know anything about it themselves, so they would be exposed, right? Nobody wants to be exposed. Like you, if you say do you think that neon soap gel is bad for it? He doesn't even know what that means. So he would be exposed and not knowing his business. And second of all, what would happen is people would be empowered to change things for themselves, and and therefore not be interested in taking stuff to suppress their symptoms. I mean, the way I see it, it should be extremely rare, and I mean extremely rare, for a person to be taking a pharmaceutical drug. I mean, I would go months without prescribing a single one. I mean, even a year, not one, because nobody needed, and yet most people are on, 2, 10, 6, whatever, every day of their life. So they don't, I mean, they've been brainwashed into not thinking about reality, and their whole life is theoretical models which they don't even understand how they came about.
Yeah, exactly. I noticed that even when I go home to the States, to visit my family, they're all on 20 pills of this, that, and the other. Like, in Denmark, it's people aren't really so pharma crazy, but they're still on them here. But
Yeah.
they're on for everything. And I'm like, why? Just take a nap, dude. Open the window,
Yeah,
like
right.
drink some water. But that brings us, so you, in your new curriculum, you had these 4 assumptions or tenets, I would call them. And the number one is what you're talking about. And you said the body is self-healing, self-regenerating. That's one of the principles, right, of this new biology. Because people are going to say, what do you mean new biology? What
Yeah,
new biology? What are you talking? What's new about biology, right?
right. Well, it's a new understanding, but it's actually, in some ways, it's a misnomer, because it's an old understanding that has been forgotten. And we went into this cell, DNA, living beings are chemistry sets, and we're not. And that's the problem. So we went into this model-based theoretical stuff, which uh, isn't working. And so, yes, how do I know that the body is self-regenerating? You get a cut, it heals.
Yeah.
That's it.
Exactly. Yeah. And TC Fry and Herbert Shelton, they were talking. What was her name? Florence Nightingale.
Yeah,
She just opened the windows and let some fresh air in. And there's like
yeah,
30 guys breathing out and farting toxins all over each
yeah,
other. And she opens the window and they all get better.
yeah,
No medicine, just
yeah.
fresh air.
Right.
So you're right. This has been known. I think the other thing too, I can remember growing up, we always had like grandma's remedies, like, oh, you take some castor oil and, you get the like diuretics and stuff. It's like the grandma recipes have still been there all along and they work. That's another reason, this works,
Yeah,
is because grandma's recipe works and your drugs don't. You're on those drugs for life and they
yeah,
want you that way. You're not on castor oil for life.
yeah.
You know?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
the allopathic drugs, quote, work by suppressing your body's healing mechanisms. It's you get a splinter in your finger, you take it, the pus comes to get it out. They give an antibiotic because they think the pus is the disease. And it's just, and that's bronchitis and pneumonia. They think the cough is the disease. It's not. It's the healing mechanism. So in new biology, it's really getting away from that understanding of what the human being is. And then the treatments should all, insofar as possible, work with what your body is trying to do. Your body is trying to cough, you make it easier to cough. That's it.
Yeah, and I think cancer is the number one offender of that, because that has the biggest victim mentality. I caught cancer. You're like,
Yeah.
there's not cancer flying around, and you were the unlucky one who caught it.
Yeah.
You to have something in your body that needs to be protected and wrapped up, and you have tumors, and that's one of the things I learned from a guy called a biochemist called George Washington Carey, Dr. Carey. And this is one of your tenants. He said, your symptom is not a disease. It's a communication strategy, in a way,
Right.
of your body telling you, hey, something's in balance here, something's wrong. And if you don't feel this pain, you won't know it, and you'll just carry on
Yeah.
doing what you're doing. Do you agree with that?
100%. Symptoms are communication strategies. And it's just like, if you go through your life, every time your friends and your partner and your wife and husband or whatever wants to say something to you, and you say, no, I don't want to hear about it. You're not going to have a good life. And
Yeah.
that's what we're doing with our body. We're saying, we don't want to hear about what you have to say. And so if you're lucky, the body will keep saying it. If you're not lucky, the body will say, this person doesn't listen. I'm out of here. And then
Yeah.
you're in real trouble.
Especially, that's the dangers of stuff like ivermectin, for example. Yeah, you feel better, but that's because, it stopped you from detoxing the toxins. Well, the danger is, yeah, you might be able to go another year. Now you've got ivermectin in you, which is highly toxic. Go on to PubChem, it says it right there. Don't eat this stuff. But the problem is, the next time you're going to take ivermectin again, because you're going to go, it worked last time.
Yeah.
And you do that 3 times in a row, and then you're looking at some, you're in trouble down the
Yeah.
road. I think that's one of the problems. So for this curriculum,
and the interesting point about that is, these are philosophical questions, right? This is about the conception of reality that you have. And they have a different conception. They think if it stops the symptoms, that's good. Doesn't matter. It's just good. And that's a very short-sighted, inaccurate view of life.
Yeah, because the symptom is actually a result of healing,
Yeah.
but we keep calling it, as you said, if you call the healing the disease,
Yeah.
then you take a medicine to what you think is attacking disease. You're actually attacking the healing.
Right.
Which
That's
that's the dumbest thing you could ever do in your life, but we all do that.
Yeah,
Or
we all
did.
do it.
So who's this new biology curriculum? It's not for people like me. I'm not a doctor. Who is this for? And then how does this work? Like, so will people be able to find your network and then, say they don't want to go to an allopathic quack or something? How does this all work, what you're setting up?
I mean, the idea was, before I die, I should probably systematically teach this method. I mean, it sounds a little arrogant to me, but anyways, so I was convinced that I should do it. And so essentially teaching people who want to be, some sort of practitioner, and maybe even people who just want to learn about health and healing. And so there's a systematic approach. How do you talk to people? What do you think when somebody comes in with a sore throat? Like, what's going on? Is it a virus, right? Is it strep, or is it the braces, which change the metallic, field in your mouth, and then you got degraded tonsils, and then the bacteria eat them. Then, so you go through how to think about all these different disease sort of modules, and we have group sessions and talk about it, and talk to people individually if they need to get it. And by the end of that, you should have a pretty good understanding of of how to think about this biology, what's wrong with the old one, how to study it, a basic understanding, and then if you're a practitioner, how to implement this into your practice and get out of this $5,000 of lab tests and functional, it's your zinc and your hair and all this theoretical model-based stuff, which doesn't do anybody any good.
Right. And then, so you will have a network, like, for example, if we want to find one of your
Yeah,
trained
right.
doctors in our area, so we can go on there
Yeah.
and find them, right? Yeah. I mean, it's a massive endeavor. It's like, good on you for doing it, man. But it's
It's
fun
my
to think.
son who really he's the driving force. I wouldn't do anything if it was me.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great. Like we said, when we started, people are looking for solutions. We're in a very, I think, what you could call a scary time for some people. And we're
Yeah.
in a very exciting time for me, where we're seeing, I feel blessed to be alive in a time where I can see that there are going to be major paradigm shifts happening. Not that we can ever win or lose, everything's a polarity, but if we don't let them do what they're doing, I see a wonderful time ahead for
Yeah.
us if stuff like this happens and more people get on board. What kind of reaction are you getting from, like, allopathic doctors? Is it good,
I mean,
or
I don't, they ignore me, so I don't get
it? But you have
it.
people signing up and stuff.
Yeah,
How's it
we have
going?
people signing up, and you know, it's interesting we say that because it a lot of times I will say, like, I'll be very critical of existing systems, whether it's social security, medicine, a whole lot of things. I mean, I don't like most of it. And then people say, well, yeah, but what are you going to replace it with? And it's in some ways a good question. In some ways, it's the wrong question, because my tendency is to say, I don't have to worry about that. I'm just going to say what I think, and then people will individually and collectively start sorting it out. And if somebody comes up with a solution to, poverty, I can tell you right now, it's not going to be right. There are, millions of solutions, and millions of solutions to what should I do to be a healthier, happier person. You don't need me to say, now I can give you a certain framework to get out of the old. That's the main thing, is get out of the old, think differently, see what's real, start there, then you'll figure it out. We don't need some other top-down solution to this, whatever our problems are.
Yeah, and I think it is always personalized, just the same with illness. It's
Yeah,
you and I could have the same dis-ease, and it could be a totally different cause.
totally different
And
cause.
I've been saying that too, because there was a guy, Buckminster Fuller,
Yeah,
and he always said, you do not defeat a system by attacking it. He says you put your energy into making a new
yeah,
system that's better, that makes the old one obsolete, so that people will come to your system.
right.
And I've been telling people recently, I've been saying, if you're building a house, we're out building a new house on the land, but we've got an old decrepit shed in the back. Well, we're men. We can only do one thing at a time anyway, and the women can maybe do two, but we cannot build a house and knock down a shed at the same time. So are we going to build a house, or are we going to put the tools down and go knock down the shed? And I see a lot of that happening even in the movement you and I are involved in, with the terrain versus that thing. I'm going to keep this YouTube friendly. To me, I'm not attacking the Kennedys and Malones and all that. That's knocking down the shed. I'm saying, go ahead, do that. I'm going to show you what's
Yeah,
up. And that's where my energy's going. I
yeah,
don't care what Malone's saying. I don't give a damn. You
yeah,
can say all you want, McCullough. To me, if these dudes don't get it, I don't want to be associated with it. I'm not even going to give them energy.
yeah. No,
So that's what I like what you're doing. You're saying, screw this. Lanka did the same. He said, I already debunked the boogeyman, so I don't need to be in the future movement to keep debunking the boogeyman. I did it.
yeah,
So it's
right.
like, what do we do now?
I mean, I think we need to still point out to people the flaws in that way of thinking. I mean, but I totally get it, and which is why you can't also sell this and by being angry and upset all the time and unhappy and unhealthy and pissed off, and world sucks and everybody sucks and here, come and join me. Why?
Let's all be miserable together.
Yeah. like I don't like. I'm not joining you. But that's, anyways. Yeah.
Yeah, lead by example. Are you doing anything else, Tom? Are you writing any new books or anything else we can look forward to?
No books right now. Not particularly. I'm just
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm really getting, I'm getting sick of talking about the boogeyman, but I agree with you. It's still, we need to pursue it, but
a little bit.
I'm getting interested in like what you're talking about, the heart. It's not a pump, what we call immune systems or cancer, metabolic function. It's all BS. You can control your breathing and change your heart rate. So that's proof right there. Your heart's not pumping, or else how is your mind and breath like chain lines?
Yeah.
If the heart's just doing it, then how
Yeah.
come you can just relax and change your breathing and change it? Like, come on.
Well, I recently got into this thinking about the cancer, because that comes up a lot in the clinic and in the curriculum. It's an interesting thought process, because they say, everybody knows, cancer is when there's a mutant cell, right? Because it got a mutation, and the cell is all messed up. It's got funky number of chromosomes and it's misshapen, et cetera. And it grows way too fast and overtakes the rest of the system, right? That's basically cancer. So I thought about this. Imagine something that's all broken, like a car. Somebody comes in, my car's all broken. The engine's in 3 pieces and the steering wheel's in the trunk and the tires are flat and somebody cut the brake cables. And so you say, yeah, well, how's it running? Oh, runs 3 times faster than a normal car. You'd say, wait a minute. So how is it that this broken, dysfunctional, mutated, abnormal chromosome cell is able to grow 3 times faster than a healthy cell? I don't think that's right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Nobody ever questioned that. And, that's just the fact. And everybody's treatment, holistic and conventional, is killing these fast growing cells, right? Going to kill them because they're growing too fast. I think the cells are just the excretion products of the tissue.
Yeah, we don't even, like Hillman said, we don't even know if there are cells because we can't look at them in a body.
Right.
I think I heard you say to Eddie Bravo, if I chop your hand off and then mush it up into a million pieces and look into a microscope, I can't figure out how a hand works. So yeah, are there even cells? We know there's red blood cells. We can see those, the bigger ones, and white maybe, but we don't even know if what's inside them is what we say is inside them.
Yeah, but even a red blood cell is really an oxygen delivery apparatus.
Bubble or so. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I think these cells are just excretion products, which is why they're not going anywhere. They're not even dividing.
See, cancer is a weird one. Maybe I'd like your opinion on this. So I'm with you that I think if you have garbage in your body, it's wrapping them up with what we call tumors to make sure maybe the garbage bag, so it doesn't spread all over. And I know, like, when the doctor takes a biopsy, it's like they basically pop a hole in the protective coating and then all the poisons get out. And oh my God, it's spreading and metastasizing. Yes. And you're like, that's because you popped a hole in it. But a lot of the Taoist cancer treatments, they're still about attacking the tumor, even using like castor oil or turpentine, so do you really want to attack a tumor? What's your opinion on that? Are you really trying to get the poison out from inside, or do you want to be messing with tumors?
So my conclusion right now, and this is the part that I would say is speculation, not fact, is we're made of tissue, and tissue is always, it's always dying and regrowing, just like normal. And so at the periphery of this tissue, it forms little cells, and those slough off, and then you get new tissue. If the tissue, like your liver, is poisoned, it obviously will make more faster cells that are not the right kind of like nice little bags of garbage. Like the normal ones are just bags of healthy excretion products. These ones are abnormal, misshapen, toxic stuff. And then the more you put in poisons, the faster the quote cells will form as your body tries to detoxify. And then it isn't that those cells travel through the blood and go to your spleen. It's that the liver is full and then the spleen is the next site. Just like if you put garbage in your house, you put it in a bag and that's fine. You take it out to the curb. But if you put twice as much, you got twice as many bags, and then eventually you put it in your spare bedroom and et cetera. And then it goes in your kitchen and then you're dead. So it's not a bad idea to take stinky garbage out of your house, right? Like that's fine. But don't think that you've solved the problem. All you've done is given your house a little bit of a breather so that you can, maybe stop doing that and making more stinky garbage. So I think that's why surgery and getting rid of tumors sometimes helps, just because it lessens the burden. But
right, yeah, I could also see, there are situations where the tumor's in your brain and it's so big it's starting to press against other areas where it's dangerous to. I can see sometimes there is a need for surgery, but usually not.
Yeah. Right. So there's sometimes it's a physical, like pressure or something.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And it's also the same with DNA. And oh, by the way, I saw you you read Tracy Northern did a paper on the amino age. It's a girl, by the way. You weren't sure if it's a he or a she. She's actually my co-author. I'm going to put a shameless plug in.
Oh, wow.
She did all the illustrations for our children's book, The Dukes of Dents, which is on all Amazon, but she's a wonderful artist and a brilliant researcher. So
yeah, she is brilliant researcher and writer.
Amazing person. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah. I've learned a lot. She's one of my teachers as well. So excellent. Well, we won't keep this too long, Tom. I just want to say it's a pleasure to speak with you. And all
right, Steve. It's great to talk again. Thanks for
excellent. We'll speak again, and I'll see you at the end of COVID. We're both in the upcoming end of COVID series. So looking forward to that too.
All right, Steve. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Tom. Have a great day.
Okay. Bye-bye.